Welcome back. Heyo. Okay. That's hard to do both at once, but hello and welcome. Hello, my fellow schizotypals. What up, doe? And welcome back to High Lit with Carlisle Fletcher. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how can you convince your elderly loved ones that you're not doing anything weird. How can you convince, mama and, your granddad that it's not being weird, man. It's not. I'm not, like, trying to kill myself with weed. I'm not, like, this is not really that even negative of a habit, because like we're assuming here that you're using cannabis responsibly. I feel like that's kind of the mood of the show, and that's what we kind of obviously promote is responsible use, because it's like, if this works for you, do it. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. But this is hopefully going to be a easy introduction for people. So let's get one thing in the way. So one of the hardest conversations for people to have with their family centers about substance use. We're going to restart that. Anyways, music's by Koji Tavi. Check him out. I fucking love that guy. He's the best. But one of the hardest conversations people have with their family centers around substance use, smoking, drinking, taking pills, snorting, whatever it is, families judge the lifestyles of those within them. If you're someone moderately sensible who's using cannabis in ways that seem beneficial to you, then you're probably getting, some pushback where people are like, oh, you're throwing away your life. It's probably like really negatively impacting your grades or whatever. But at the same time, older people tend to be no angels, so like some people are incredibly sheltered, as some people in our generation and your peers are, but most people tend to have had their time of wild experimentation and carefree lifestyle. Many of them even tried smoking cannabis, however, it wasn't for them to, so many of them have tried smoking cannabis, however, it was for them to accentuate the sound of jazz or to make their stupid friends sound funny. It wasn't a tool for improving their health. And it might sound ridiculous that smoking reefer can keep you cleaner, but it's in line with research from the University of Miami, a place trusted by all of those over 40. So let's start with 2021. Here, we have a study coming out of Miami that marijuana, whatever. Cannabis use by teens is not independently associated with an increased risk of so-called amotivational syndrome, according to the longitudinal data published in the Journal of International Neuropsychological Society. A team of researchers affiliated with Florida International University assessed the associations between cannabis use and motivation in a cohort of 401 adolescents. So, this is what we're talking about, and it's right now. It's I'm going through normal to discuss this. So authors reported that adolescents' cannabis use was not associated with any significant changes in motivation, apathy, or engagement after investigators controlled for subjects' use of alcohol and tobacco, among other potential co-founders such as sex, age, and depression. They reported that despite significant increases in levels of the cannabis use in our sample, change in cannabis use did not predict change in motivation, which suggests that cannabis use may not lead to reductions in motivation over time. So, very fascinating. And I just kind of brought this in because it's like, breaking, but cannabis has not been found to be guilty of most of the sins slathered on it through prohibition. And like here we have young and middle-aged adults, and from the text here, let's prove a positive aspect. So it's like, not only is it not causing the things that people accuse it of causing and like being this really big scary thing, but from this we can see like a positive association that results show, particularly for fixed effects models, cannabis use is not significantly related to exercise, counter to conventional wisdom that cannabis users are less likely to be active. Indeed, the only significant estimates suggest a positive relationship, even among heavier users during the past 30 days. These findings are at odds with much of the existing literature, which generally shows the negative relation between cannabis use and exercise. In additional states as additional states legalize the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis, perhaps its impact on exercise, one of the leading social determinants of health, is not necessarily a primary concern. So that's this part of that, and I think that here we're seeing, so you can't deny obesity. You can't deny that America has an obesity crisis, and like you can't, like, if it's a problem within your family, it's like, yeah, it's an elephant in the fucking room. You know, you can literally see it. You can literally know that people are struggling with it. So if we have this issue, we want to have all the tools at hand to be able to address it, you know, right? So I feel like this is a good place to open up the conversation where it's like, well, actually cannabis is not associated with amotivation, and it is associated with exercise. Like, it's associated with exercise, and it's associated with, additionally, a lower BMI than average. So here we have cannabis and a BMI, and we find that cannabis use, so it helps. But like, clearly it would be better to exercise and maintain a healthy weight completely sober and without assistance, but most people understand you need some support, or you might need some support. Perhaps the elderly loved one in your life earlier had put you on or supported putting you on medication for your health, you know, whether it's mental or whatever. And if they can understand big pharma putting chemicals with uncertain safety profiles in your body, then they can likely understand if you'd rather save money and smoke something produced by local farms. So from this analysis, you have diet is the main cause of premature death and disability in the United States. The modern Western diet is pro-inflammatory and obesogenic. Diseases associated with inflammatory and obesity include cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, mood disorders, autoimmune disorders, liver and kidney diseases, and musculoskeletal disabilities. A significant dietary factor contributing to these health problems is an increased ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, especially in the context of a high glycemic load. That's kind of mumbo jumbo to us. But there's a graph. It's fucking amazing. Here, you have the cannabis use category, right? And you have here, you got non-users at a 28, 27 range. So you're like in between that, while users are in that 25, 26, which is like very significant, you know, because it's like you want to be lower on this. And so here you have that a comparison of the BMI of cannabis users and non-users. Data from current use, highest dosage. Available users show that non-users are overweight on average. The average person is overweight. Whereas the BMI of the users is not different from the upper limit of the healthy weight range. So like on the BMI context, like it's like the people who are using cannabis are not by and large unhealthy. Meanwhile, average people are overweight. So it shows that cannabis is actually associated with exercise. It's not associated with amotivation. It is associated with exercise, and it is associated with a lower BMI. So we can tie all of this into one of my favorite pieces, my favorite things published at all from 2020, which is a scoping review and meta-analysis by Thomas Clark out of Indiana. And it suggests that cannabis use may reduce cancer risk in the United States. So here I want to go, I've been through this thing several times, and essentially what he finds is that if you control for bias, and if you control for certain kinds of cancer, then cannabis is found to reduce cancer risk. And one of the things that he hypothesizes is that is because of the decreased obesity rates in cannabis users. So obesity increases the risk of cancer. Cancer of the breast, colon, and rectum, prostate, esophagus, stomach, pancreas, uterine corpus, gallbladder, kidney, liver, ovary, and thyroid, as well as multiple myeloma, are positively associated with obesity. In the United States, between 1982 and 2000, obesity caused about 20% and 14% of deaths in women and men, respectively. Note that obesity rates are substantially higher today than in 2000, and rates of obesity-related cancers are increasing even in young people as the obesity rates continue to rise. I will say from personal experience, my obese mother had cancer. My emaciated father also had cancer, so I don't really know what to make of that. But he didn't smoke pot. The percentage of cancer deaths attributable to obesity are therefore much likely are therefore likely to be much higher today than they were in 2003, when the study by Cal et al. Was published, even as tobacco use and lung cancer are declining. However, using the numbers from Cal et al., a minimum of 85,000 to 120,000 of the 607,000 cancer deaths projected for 2019 are caused by obesity. Similarly, an estimated 3.6% of all new cancer cases worldwide are caused by excess body fat. A recent review determined that cannabis use is associated with reduced obesity risk, and BMI, like weight loss following bariatric surgery. Reduced obesity rates in response to cannabis use may decrease cancer risk. Cannabis use protects against non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, a disorder that is strongly associated with obesity and is an independent predictor of gastric and liver cancers. Cancer types strongly associated with obesity. Cancer use may thus have lower risk of obesity-associated cancer types simply due to decreased risk of obesity. So, what we're finding here is that simply by helping the body normal out, and like maintain a healthier level, and again, like this is nothing here is meant to be overly critical or negative about people who have a higher BMI. Like, it's not bad to have a higher BMI, but at a certain level it is correlated with cancer. It is correlated with hypertension. It is correlated with inflammation. So it's like, while there's nothing wrong with you as a person for having a higher BMI, there might be in your best interest to try to get on top of that. And if it's as simple as smoking pot, drinking water, and going for walks, like including these things into your daily regimen can really help out and are pretty easy to do. So that's why I'm discussing this, is that it's like, none of this is like, oh my God, like, it's just like, I think that this could really help in these fights. And that's why I want to share this with people and say it in the context of being like, this is how you can help elderly people understand where you're coming from. Because it's not the big scary, It's not this thing that's going to turn women into jazz devils that are going to backflip. It's not, that didn't play out. That wasn't the truth. Meanwhile, chronic inflammation is associated strongly with both obesity and the initiation and progression of cancer, and a decrease of BMI of 7%, similar in magnitude to the observed 6% decrease in BMI associated with cannabis use, decreases pro-inflammatory and increases anti-inflammatory gene expression in visceral adipose tissue. Cytokinins involved in inflammation play a significant role in promoting cancer, and therefore drugs such as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs decrease cancer risk. A number of cannabinoids have anti-inflammatory effects in laboratory studies, and cannabinoids are therefore of interest for development as a therapy option for chronic inflammation, currently an unmet medical need. Thus, cannabis use may directly inhibit inflammation at the cellular level, and in addition, indirectly reduces inflammation by decreasing BMI and the risk of obesity. Both actions should decrease cancer risk. This effect would be offset if inflammatory responses are desensitized with chronic use. And finally, on the theory that he's developing here. So finally, on the things that he's setting up here that I want to bring up is the improved sense of, so probiotic action is fucking interesting. So first off, we got this going on where the gut microflora and then that being balanced out by cannabis, and we're seeing lower BMI even with people who aren't really exercising that much. But I wanted to get into cannabis use is associated with reduced risk of DM, reduced fasting insulin levels, and reduced insulin resistance. In contrast, DM and elevated insulin or C-peptide levels are associated with greater cancer risk and faster growth and aggressiveness of colorectal, pancreatic, liver, postmenopausal breast, and endometrial cancers, and thus increased mortality from these cancers. So, I think here we see a clear argument for the efficacy of cannabis in treating very difficult to address physical conditions such as obesity and inflammation. With this level of organized research, with someone who wasn't even in the legal industry, this is a professor on a sabbatical writing this. The literature speaks for itself. Not particularly this review, but like his review of everything together and like everything, this speaks for itself. It's data. It's not a, hey man, I feel better when I smoke pot, man. It just helps me be a better, no. Obesity, inflammation. Like, we're talking about very concrete things. We're talking about epilepsy, which the FDA has already approved cannabis for. So people are already on board with it, at least a little bit. And the reason why we're trying to push so hard for it is because of the negative effects of pharmacology. Everybody wants to make a profit off everything. However, the supply chain on cannabis profits is smaller than the massive machine that is the pharmacological industry. So why the propaganda against it, while the propaganda against it might have been catchy and played on their fears, most of your loved ones will never want to take away something that helps you. And in my experience, I can say for me, it has truly helped me. And I'm somebody who grew up in a very abusive household, very neglected, didn't have like a lot of opportunity to build up my life. But it was really after I started smoking cannabis that I was able to, I would say, like, not to just get into the theory too deeply, but I would say it does help with neuroplasticity. You know, it makes your brain more plastic, which allows you to reintegrate and reinterpret information. And doing that in like my adolescence really helps me just kind of reset how I wanted to socialize with people and how I wanted to present myself and how I wanted to spend my time. And like it got me off of pop, got me off of unhealthy food, and got me more interested in eating vegetables and drinking water. You know, so from my own personal experience, I can be a testament to that. I know anecdotal evidence doesn't fucking matter for shit. So anyways, help them see how this does help through the science. Show them the data. We're doing this work to normalize the medicine and get consumer level information out there. So please share it and grab control over the conversation. Don't blame them or debate them or argue with them, but try to get them to support you in your quest to find the best treatment option for you. After reviewing the available literature, Clark found that we're skipping around. I've covered this so many fucking times. I love this piece. But in the conclusion, he found that decreased risk in cannabis users should not be surprising, as cannabis and cannabinoids decrease obesity, inhibit chronic inflammation, reduce fasting insulin levels and insulin sensitivity, and have direct anti-tumor actions. Furthermore, the airway and bladders would be exposed to the highest levels of carcinogens from cannabis smoke, yet risk of cancers in the oral, pharyngeal, and laryngeal regions and the bladder are significantly decreased in cannabis users. This demonstrates that the anti-cancer effects of cannabis outweighs the carcinogenic effects, even in the airways and bladders, where carcinogenic exposure is high. So, when you're smoking weed, it goes through your lungs, right? And we're seeing in the airway, we're seeing a decreased risk of cancer, even though this is a high exposure to carcinogens. So we're seeing that the effects of cannabis anti-tumor effects outweigh potential carcinogenic exposure, and this is even true of smoking. And same thing with the bladder, because it's always processing, you know, the things. So it's like it would be more exposed to the negative byproducts. That's how your body processes things. So it's possible that the actual decrease in cancer risk due to cannabis use is even greater than the estimated 10% decrease in risk emerging from the current analysis. So 10% in this analysis, he has found a 10% decreased risk of cancer. Like, that is very, very important to know. And I think that anybody who is a honest listener, anybody who is a honest actor and is handling this information with love and care and is receptive to you, is going to see that and be like, well, that's weird. So it is possible that the actual, And as few data are available for the impact of cannabis use on the remission rate of cancers that are not exposed to the carcinogenics of smoke, for example, those associated with obesity. Cannabis users showed decreased BMI and obesity rates. This decrease is known to be associated with decreased risk of obesity-related diseases, including DM and non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases. So, and this is like seeing a 10% decrease in the regions of the body that are regularly breaking down or exposed to cannabis. So like your lungs, they're still seeing a 10% decrease. So like imagine the parts of the body that aren't even potentially exposed to this. So many cancer types are positively associated with obesity, including what I've rattled out before, as well as multiple myeloma. Cannabis use may decrease the risk of these obesity-related cancer types simply due to the reduction in BMI associated with cannabis use. In addition, however, most of these cannabis types are known to be inhibited or destroyed by cannabinoids in laboratory studies. Cannabis use is therefore very likely to be associated with a substantial reduction in the risk of and mortality from obesity-related cancers. Unfortunately, no recent data and few data overall are available for the remission rate of obesity-related cancers in cannabis users. Data providing risk ratios for obesity-related cancers are related to 6 data points from 2 studies. The first study using data from the early 1990s in California provided data for esophageal, colorectal, prostate, and breast cancers. Another study also included data on esophageal cancer. These data provide a mean meta-analysis, an analytic remission rate of 0.89, 95%. While not statistically significant, this is consistent with decreased risk. Note that these are likely to underestimate the impact today, as the obesity rate in the United States was about 25% lower at the time these data were collected than it is today. So that's where I wanted to leave this study. And ultimately, so again, I kind of explained what they found. So the hypothesis that cancer risk is increased by cannabis use is not supported by the data. That is a core take-home point that you can share with a elderly person, and I think that they would get that. And the data instead shows a trend towards negative association between cannabis use and cancer risk. And this reaches statistical significance, so it is a significant reduced risk upon removal of data determined to be at high risk of selection and performance bias. So when you're removing biased research, or removal of data of testicular cancers. So testicular cancer is the one thing that kind of throws it a little whatever. But, you know, so that's what they found. Moving on from the kind of obvious things where it's like, if you're struggling with obesity and cancer, you can say like, yo, like I want this, you know, and that's why cannabis is an approved treatment option for things like autism and things like cancer. Like, these are undeniable issues. But let's talk about the potential for cannabis to help autism and schizophrenia. These are both conditions that also are very obviously core medical conditions, and they have awful fucking treatment options. So from a critical article that was disproving the genotypal impact of cannabis effects. So this is one saying that, like, yeah, this genetic research doesn't really pan out. Even this one is like, well, yeah, but the ChRNA2 was found to be of significance in the genetic-wide association study of cannabis use disorder and in the largest schizophrenic genetic-wide association study. Additionally, there may be a strong biological link between the expression of ChRNA2 and the gene that encodes CB1. So that pairing up with in a study on those, okay, this shows to me, and it suggests to me, that the genetic material associated with cannabis abuse disorder and schizophrenia it's related to both. So like, one gene is associated to psychotic experience and to abuse cannabis. And like, to me, that shows that it's not that like a healthy person is just gonna and become schizophrenic and start having hallucinations. It's more likely that a schizophrenic is going to engage in smoking cannabis. And it sounds like it's more likely that negative reactions to cannabis, this crazy shit that goes on, is due to the predisposition of those who have it. Like, you know, because again, we don't say that peanuts are lethal. We don't say that peanuts kill people, and yet people die from them, what, every year? You know, maybe every day? And yet, it's not the killer peanuts, you know? So, this is something that Mechelen, a founding father of modern cannabis research, predicted in the 80s, where he was like, you can treat schizophrenia with CBD and like other cannabinoids. And a study on the risk of those with schizophrenia using cannabis particularly found that our results suggest that cannabis users do not have poorer treatment response than non-users in terms of symptom reduction over the 24 months of treatment. However, the dose-related risk of relapse remains with the ongoing cannabis use, possibly by directly reducing the threshold for psychotic breakthrough. And that's what they have here. So here is like, even schizophrenics aren't really that much at an increased risk, you know? So it's like, yeah, sure, it's like smoking weed might make you crazy. And it's like, dude, it doesn't make crazy people crazy. You know, if it's not even going to make a schizophrenic go fucking nuts, how's it going to make you go fucking nuts? You know? And it's like, yeah, sure, there's a genetic association that those who are more likely to abuse cannabis are also more likely to be schizophrenic. I believe that's also associated with cigarette addiction. You know, so it's like, it does show that like maybe that's true, but it isn't it is not proven in any like reasonable. It's not proven in any reasonable data that cannabis just kills your brain and makes you fucking crazy. I think that's a huge misnomer. And pretty much everything that you can find on the subject is bad faith. Here, it's like, it's not saying that it's a panacea. It's not saying it's going to cure everything. It's saying that, yes, it can have uncomfortable side effects. Yes, it doesn't work for everybody. Yeah, it has really bad effects on some people. But it's not, that's about the individual. It's not about the potential of it as a medical option. Some people can't eat peanuts. Some people can't take aspirin. You know, they ask you what medications you're allergic to. Maybe you're allergic to pot. You know? Maybe it's just not for you. Maybe it's just no good. And so I wanted to then go into this. And I wanted to just fucking read through this one. Because cannabis continues to be the most commonly used illicit drug in the U.S., and the potential benefits of CBD on cognition in patients with schizophrenia have clinical importance. And then they give us a little bit of the history. But let's just go straight down to the important shit. So, so the association between cannabis use and psychosis is well known in epidemiological studies, and a dose-dependent response relationship is consistently reported with an odds ratio of 3.9 for the risk of schizophrenia in heavy cannabis users. But again, that could be an association of schizophrenics smoking weed, not weed causing schizophrenia. These things are as likely to be true. However, use of cannabis strains with high CBD content has been associated with fewer psychotic symptoms. So let's skip on to the very first case report on the use of CBD as an antipsychotic medication was published by Ziardi and colleagues. In this study, a 19-year-old patient with schizophrenia was treated with CBD up to 1,500 milligrams daily for 4 weeks, which resulted in an improvement of acute psychotic symptoms. From a study in 2006 that looked at the effects of CBD as a monotherapy for treatment-resistant schizophrenia on 3 individuals, showed that the improvement was only seen in 1 patient, but again, 33%, that's as likely to work as a fucking medicine. A later study on the antipsychotic effects of CBD on 6 individuals who had Parkinson's showed improvement of psychotic symptoms over the course of 4 weeks. So since then, the antipsychotic properties of CBD have been investigated in 3 clinical trials with mixed results. Double-blind clinical control effects of CBD, and the study showed that the CBD is as effective as amisulpride in treating psychotic symptoms and has fewer adverse effects, including extrapyramidal symptoms and weight gain. I'm pretty sure also your boy Macholam did shit earlier too, but he also found that it had a better side effects profile. Compared with the placebo group, the CBD group showed greater improvement of positive psychotic symptoms over the course of the treatment. Mean improvement was 3.2 in the CBD group compared with 1.7 in the placebo. Moreover, by the end of the treatment, more patients in the CBD group were rated as improved than the placebo group. Patients who received CBD also showed trend level improvement in their cognitive function and a significant improvement of their motor speed compared with controls. In a similar study, and they found no significant difference between CBD and placebo. So, seems like, it's like we don't really know. Some people saying yes, some people saying no, but it's not clear that it's just this fucking wrecking ball. It's not clear. Like, it seems like we'd have much more concrete data if it was as bad as people assume it to be, and that's why it's like, let's walk back from that position and let's say, hey, the research that we're talking about is as indicative of showing positive effects as negative effects. So we don't have to say that it has positive effects, but we should at least admit that there's a opportunity for it to work in certain ways. A hammer can be used to break the skull of a baby. It can also be used to make a wall to protect the same baby. So it's like, it depends on how you use things. It's not about things being inherently good or inherently evil. Yet we can compare this to work like this, where in stimulant use in patients presenting with psychocutaneous disorders. And so, yeah, these psychotic disorders, essentially, that's essentially what it means. It means it's essentially like psychotomimetic, which means that it mimics psychosis, but it's caused by medicine, and it's often attributed to stimulant medication. So 60% of the patients with a psychocutaneous disease has recently used a stimulant, and more than 80% carried an additional psychiatric diagnosis. The neurotic disorder group was younger and had higher rates of stimulant use. The psychotic disorder group had a higher rate of psychosis, medical comorbidity, and illicit stimulant drug use. So if you're looking at that, it's like, hey, if you gave your kids Adderall, you can't be talking shit on weed. At all. At all. Ritalin, at all. Don't want to hear it. Vyvanse, at all. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Because this is the same shit. This is the same shit. If you're gonna poo cannabis with all that bullshit, you got the same shit coming back to you. So you cannot give your kids pills and then say that this shit causes bad things. Also, you drive a fucking car. This is a high correlation between car fumes and pollution in cities and developing schizophrenia by the age of 37. You know? So this is about like NO2 and NOx, which is exposure during childhood, was associated with subsequent elevated schizophrenia risk. So the car emissions that you fucking drive are making children in cities schizophrenic. So again, you can't really use that word as like a, oh my god, this causes schizophrenia. Oh my god, there's going to be a schizophrenia outbreak. You are driving around in the means of production for schizophrenia. Do you know what also causes it? Narcissistic parents in a consumer culture, which is promoted through this, and isolation, not feeling like they're part of a community. What did the suburbs and a car-dependent lifestyle allow us to do? But no, let's blame it on the funny tobacco. Let's blame it on the funny tobacco. And I'm not trying to be confrontational, but it's a funny argument. You know? Great people, lovely people, loving people make this argument without realizing how fucking ridiculous they sound. So the argument that smoking pot causes kids to become schizophrenic is nonsensical when it's coming from the generation that won't leave their house without getting inside their car and who gave their kids pills to make them behave. Or shut up. If they won't see the positive aspects of cannabis research or the negative aspects of our lifestyles, well, some of their friends are already experimenting. So cannabis use is on the rise within the demographic, doubling within the over 65 from 2015 to 2018, and this follows from a rise. So it's at like 4% now, and it was at 0.4 in 2006. I think most people who love you will be happy to follow you along this path and admit that they at least don't know what's best for you. They'll at least respect your freedom to inform yourself and make choices of your own volition. I think that. I really believe that. So here is a laid out argument where it's not correlated to amotivation or ruining your life. There's also brain scans that you can find that it's not correlated to ruining your fucking brain. Alcohol is. Teenage alcoholism will fucking ruin you for life, but smoking the reefer after 15 doesn't really seem that fucking bad. So that's first off. Second off, it's correlated with a healthier lifestyle, with a lower BMI, more exercise, and also, it's like, I don't have it in front of me, but it's like 55% of people consider it a spiritual practice, or at least there's some spiritual aspect to cannabis. So it's more spiritual, there's exercise, healthier fucking BMI, all that. And additionally, it can be shown to help with mental disorders. I didn't bring up anything with autism, but it's federally approved, so I don't even need to show you the research. It's already, we're fucking on it. We're there. You know, because it helps with seizures and autism. So, and finally, the traditional options that we give people are fucking awful and are killing them. And traditional medication has as many casualties as it does people it's helped. My mother's fucking dead from a pill she was prescribed. They took her life. My grandmother was never there, and I believe that the medication didn't help her preserve being there. My father was put on sleeping medication, and he was also put on a speed to wake up. And let me tell you, that man was hardly there, and he's also now dead. So if you're telling me that this is an industry of health, and this is an industry trying to make people get better, and that you should rely on this instead of something that God grows out of the fucking ground. What? What? You don't have our best interest in mind. If you listen to that entire argument, and then at the end of it, we're like, fuck you and your reefer, and this is a stupid argument, and this is a stupid movement, and you're just a college kid trying to like be a part of the youth culture, I don't know how to fucking reach you. I don't know. I don't, you know, and if I'm in this battle with you and we're trying to reach this person, I don't fucking know, dude. Sometimes people aren't good. Sometimes people don't want to fucking listen. But thank you so much for listening to me because I really care about this. And I am trying my best to give you access to accurate and useful information. So that's about the monologue that I had. So no, it's over there. But yeah, so that's the proof that we got from 0.4 all the way up. And yeah, it's an interesting argument, and it's a hard argument sometimes because, like, you do really care about these people, and I really care about these people because I think that they do instinctively get a lot of things correct. You know, like, there's a lot of things that I'll give them credit for that I think that they... God fucking damn it. That I think that they deserve. Where I think it's like you give due credit where due credit is due. And I think that they do have some good ideas. And I do think that they have important morals and, like, things like that. And, like, I don't just disrespect the older generations. I'm not that kind of guy. I try to respect as much as I possibly can from human history. I mean, that's the entire point of classic lit, isn't it? That's the whole point of the high lit thing, you know? So that's where it's like, I don't like criticizing older generations, but also I do think that most people, even the most fucking whacked out people I've had this conversation with, have been able to reach it eventually. And yeah, sure, it's because they thought that they thought better of me, you know, so like they were more willing to hear it from me. But, like, you know, I think that it is a ripe time, and I think that people are more interested in doing things like this, where it's like, how about we try something else with addressing people and helping people out? How about we try a new strategy rather than just feeling so much fucking better than everybody else with our rich friends in some fucking Catholic church? I don't know. It's just an idea. But I think that the momentum is irresistible. Again, we're up to 4% of over 65, so boomers are smoking pot. You know, like, this is no longer going to be just a youth issue. There's demographic everywhere on the board. This is a completely normalized thing, and there's no reason to be afraid of it. You know, I'd say there is more reason to be, like, vaping. Vaping, I think, is much scarier. Because you have these kids in high school that are, you know, getting addicted to nicotine. At school, on school ground, they're gaining an addiction. And, like, I think that is terrifying because that's fucked up. And, like, I mean, I think that we should really, if we're talking about, like, substance use amongst the, like, youth population, it's like, yeah, we should get kids off all substances when they're 12. You know, like, the amount of people that I know in this country that have had that pattern, or, like, that path, where, like, they started using, like, they started binge drinking, they started using substances, they started da-da-da-da-da, but in, like, 12. And it's like, yeah, no, it's gonna be a rough road. You know, like, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to just bounce back from without, you know, any scars. So I think that the conversation is more about, like, it's okay to wait to grow up, dude. You know? Like, invest in shit. Just fucking start a Minecraft server, you know? Leafy is here, did that, and he made, like, what, 100K off that fucking shit before he even did YouTube? You know? That man's a fucking businessman, god damn it. Oh my god. I bet, like, Leafy is, like, right under Jeff Bezos and people who made the most money off of 2020. I'm sure that he fucking made smart decisions with his goddamn Excel sheet, etc. Yeah. So we're gonna put on some music. We're gonna vibe out and think a little. But thanks so much for tuning in. This is High Low with Carlisle Fletcher. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Got a new email, so hit me up with that. Yeah, we're just trying to, you know, get back on top, baby. We're building a website that's gonna be exciting. Just a lot of big news, a lot of big things coming out. Anyways, we're gonna return to tradition, and I'm just gonna I'm just gonna we're gonna put on the rest of this. So, oh no, I've already done that. I'm not logged in, but proof, it's fucking amazing. Please do buy it. Also, I do think that giving money to artists is the smartest thing that you can do. That's why we always, pretty much always, are repping some independent designer, you know. So yeah, because just to show, just declining world, you know, gotta rep the boys. This is a Touche shirt, you know. So always support the arts. Always support people's ideas, man. This is Marcus Elliott Trio, jazz outfit out of Detroit, Michigan. And again, that's Marcus Elliott out of Detroit. That's my favorite living saxophonist. That shit is fire. Out of America, top. And I wanted to bring it back with that was like a little intermission. I wanted to bring it back to say that oh no. What? Oh. This is strange. There we go. I don't know what the fuck that was. But I wanted to say that, so I hope I armed you with this information so that you can make a case for the responsible use of cannabis. However, don't use cannabis as a crutch. It doesn't fix shit. So the best way that I can explain it is that cannabis is a multiplier. So if you feel like shit and you feel useless and you just feel like everything is against you, smoking weed is going to make you feel like that triple. If you feel really, unhappy with your living situation, if you feel really unhappy with yourself, you feel like you are just not doing the things that you want to, then yeah, it's not going to be a pleasant time. You're just going to think about that more and more, and you're going to obsess over it. And it's going to be these cyclical, racing thoughts that you can't break. So I would really, highly, highly recommend against that. Smoking weed should be, at best, so I'm not a medical expert, but I'm going off anecdotal evidence here. I'm going off the best that I understand. The way that I used cannabis, and the way that I think that the best way to use cannabis is through education. Some people do this dishwashing, and they smoke weed, and they wash dishes every day for years, and then they have this excellent ability this excellent command over the task. Now apply that to painting. Now apply that to doing Excel work. Now apply that to doing crypto. Now apply that to writing. It's like anything that's worth pursuit is what you should be doing high. Not saying that you should be driving high or you should be flying an airplane high, but you should be doing something that you're motivated to improve at, get better with, and expand. So, like learning a new instrument would be a great opportunity because you're learning this new language and you're actively using your mind while you're high. So again, let's go to the theory that I've talked about a few times, and I'll try to break it down just real simple. There's ways to increase neuroplasticity in the brain, and the neuroplasticity is essentially interconnectivity and communication in the brain, which is very high when you're a child. So there are things that you can do to increase that, which MDMA and THC both do, which is why theoretically they could be able to help with PTSD, because they have shown that increased neuroplasticity while engaging in reassociation therapy is like very positively associated with remission of PTSD symptoms. So I am high, so I did lose my train of thought. But ultimately, the point is that it doesn't give you an excuse to just do nothing, While it has been, it shows you, because so if you're in that vulnerable state of reprocessing where you have increased neuroplasticity and you have no stimuli and you're giving yourself no direction, then you're just reprocessing into a void. You're reprocessing into an empty space or a lack of movement, a lack of life, So it's like, yes, it's an excellent tool to retrain yourself, but you have to do that. You have to re-socialize. Like MDMA is not shown to be as effective without the socialization component because it helps you re-socialize, So it's like these are the ways that it can actually address. So it's like the research isn't solid. Science is never done. There is no completed science ever. You can always find out new shit. But to the understanding which we have, these are vectors which with we can use cannabis to help, where it's like helping interrupt seizures, potentially help neuroplasticity in the reprocessing of traumatic trauma, and for some reason it's associated with lower BMI and these things, and these are the things where it's like, yeah, this is the conversation we're trying to have. We're not trying to have that you're a barista and then you smoke some weed and all of a sudden you write the next Rick and Morty. It's like That's not really what we're promoting here. But if you want to start smoking weed and start like analyzing the history of TV and like what makes a good story and like pacing and things like that, not a bad choice at all, you know? So that's where I want to really push it, is that these are for the ideal situation. And the ideal situation is that you're being honest with yourself and you're giving yourself enough challenge and direction to really improve while you're using alternative medications, because you're not trying to get high. The point of this is not getting inebriated. I think that that is a very clear distinction that needs to be made that the older generations don't really get, because they were like, yeah, you know, it's like I had a beer, I smoked some weed, and then I watched the game, or I played a game, or I did it. You know, it's like it was always this really recreational activity, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. There might be a great benefit to cannabis as a recreational substance. However, there is research to imply that recreational use is actually chasing medicinal use, because it's like, oh, I feel numb all the time, so I smoke some weed. And it's like, well, bro, that's called antidepressant. Or it's like, you know, sleep issues, things like that. Whereas alcohol is more commonly understood as a recreational substance. Most people aren't like, oh, this is going to make my health better. You know, oh, I'll drink to your health. Like, it's semi-ironic, you know? You know, what was I going to do? But that's fucking funny. It's fucking funny because like people tell you that, where it's like, yeah, fucking, you know, Eastern European people do that to say somebody's drunk, you know, and it's like, oh, they do, yeah. You meet someone, that's yeah. It's just interesting. It's like a meme. Those are the proto memes. You can't let yourself lose to apathy. Weed is not there to improve nothing. If you're the person who is willing to get gastric bypass surgery, or who is trying to take a pill every day for the rest of their lives to address their health, that's the community that we're trying to have this conversation as an alternative for, where it's like, okay, so you don't have a heart issue. You know, you don't wear a heart monitor. You don't need something that can restart it, like literally soldered into you. You don't have an insulin pump or something like that. You're just like, you know, 110 pounds overweight, you know? And it's like, okay, so maybe instead of the surgery, you just smoke some pot and start rock climbing. You know, something to do. It engages like the full body of muscles, and like it's probably going to be pretty beneficial. I mean, yoga is also another easy thing, but I do think that rock climbing or biking or swimming or doing things like that is going to promote more use of it. And if people smoke weed and are more likely to do that, like, what the fuck's the issue? You know, it's like, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. We're not talking about somebody who like has a job, is in the middle of school, has like their life set up and is like pretty stable. We're not saying like, you know, let's get them a little, you know, it's like, oh, I've had sleep issues since I was 2, you know, my earliest memories of my life, I've always had just horrendous sleep issues, you know, so smoking weed makes me sleep every day. You know, that was an innovation in my life, was getting to sleep 8 hours a day every day. Throughout my entire childhood, that was not the case. I'd be up 5 days at a time regularly. I would be hallucinating because I just would not sleep. And then smoking weed every day, yeah, that's the big shift. I didn't even really particularly enjoy my first experiences with weed. It was really the sleep benefits, and like, actually it was, okay. So during my first time, there were like moments where it hit me, where like it was this like, it was strange because it's like, it's this turning point where it's like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, color, whoa, vibrancy, life's kind of dope. Maybe it is a gift, you know? And like having those thoughts are pretty sick, because then you're like, yeah, I'm like just more, you know, positive vibes. But then like as you use it more, it matures into like a sort of more quiet but a much deeper gratitude. And it's funny because it's like the way that I've used cannabis is doing spiritual work through it and using it to like really help me along my journey to becoming a man. And when I sober up, it's not like I feel withdrawals from cannabis. I just feel like who I was before I began doing the work. I feel like I don't have my patience, or like I feel like I have less humor. I feel like I have less of a perspective on the world and things like that. It's because it's like, you know, and it's like, well, it's like, yeah, well, that's because high was your new sober and that's the way that you're used to it. And it's like, yes, but the old sober wasn't capable of doing these things. It wasn't capable of regular socialization and breaking the ice and like, you know, reaching out to people and like being more of a part of a community. It really did take that for me to get it. And that's why I'm an advocate for it, is that it really helped me turn my life around. It gave me an entirely new perspective. And I don't think that it's a cure-all. I don't think it makes you a genius. I don't think it makes you better at art. I don't think it makes you funnier. I don't think it makes you more talented. But it might make you want to hang yourself a little bit less. And if it does, I think that's good. That's about it. It's not like I'm saying that it's going to, like, you know, make you regrow a limb. Or I'm saying that it's going to, like, fix your relationship with your dad. But, you know, it could just take the edge off enough to give you a more realistic time frame and, like, help you just get through exercise, get through chores, all that shit. And that's the point. And I think that we can reach older people with this message, for sure. I think that they're ready to hear it. So if you're scared to talk to them, please use all the sources and the general conversation we've had. Please check out and support Marcus Elliott. Please, this is fucking amazing. And I'll catch you next week. This has been Carlisle Fletcher. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And have a great day. Keep staying awesome.